You're listening to Useless Aggression Podcast, bringing you all the wrestling news and views you need, as well as some you don't. And now to your hosts, coming to you live from across the pond in England. It's James, it's Henry, it's time for Useless Aggression.
Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Useless Aggression Podcast. It is worth noting that after Hell in a Cell, I'm one of your hosts and still your podcast undisputed champion, James. Henry is also here.
Do you know what? I've got two positive takeaways for me from Hell in a Cell. The first one is James has finally lost the wild card. That's finally happened. The streak is over, monumentally as well. James wasn't even close. I mean, neither was I, but I was closer than James. and secondly, I had the moral victory knowing that James had to cheer for Sasha Banks, which I know he hated. I know he hates Sasha Banks. So he had to cheer for her, and I hope it made him sick, personally. I hope it made him really upset that he had to.
I was so tired by the time, because I watched live like half of it, as you will know, Henry, and I was most of it, and I was so tired, and then at that point I just resigned the fact that I was going to lose, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's happened. I'll just win it back at some point. I wasn't actively cheering for Sasha, but then when it happened, I was like, wait, I've just retained.
He literally was. He had a Banks shirt on. He had the rings on. He was running around saying everything was legit. He was like, I'm the legit champ. He was saying it. This happened. Don't believe him. He was all over the Sasha Banks win. He was cheering for like fucking mentalist. He was. Don't believe anything different.
But as you can probably gather, this will be our recap episode all about Hell in a Cell. Is actually going to put out there probably one of the better events of the year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably the best. It's definitely the best of the Thunderdome era, for sure, I would say.
Yeah. However, it's a weird thing to say in the sense that, because I think it is probably the best, especially like, let's talk main roster, because let's separate that out from NXT. But for me, it really came down to two matches that made it that. Because some of them were shit or just pointless. Whereas, let's get into the opening match, shall we? Which was incredible. So we're going to talk. I mean, we're not talking about the pre-show R-Truth versus Drew Gulak. that wasn't incredible.
I forgot that
Roman Reigns. Yeah, Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso in an I Quit Hell in a Cell match. I'll let you go first. What were your thoughts on this one?
I thought it was amazing. So we were watching it with another one of James's friends. And she I don't think enjoyed it that much at all. Like, she was saying, I'm a bit bored or whatever. And I don't know, I loved it personally. I thought, like, again, technically it wasn't a good match, because like it was never going to be, really. But I thought it was just the character work, the sort of storyline, the whole, like, Jey Uso refusing to give up, like a dramatic baby face that he is. And then obviously, I like Reigns in it as well. I thought Reigns was incredible. Like, he was booked to look so good in this match. The only qualm I did have, and I think it's something we said on Twitter, and I think a lot of people have agreed with as well, is it didn't need to be a Hell in a Cell match. Like, a standard I Quit match would have been fine. But I think for me, the real MVP of this whole match is still the referee. The one who just, like, he got so frustrated. Like, you had these amazing bits of dialogue between Reigns and Jey Uso, mainly Reigns. And it was this really good bit of heel work. We was just sat there like, I didn't want to have to do this, Jey, and all this sort of stuff. And you're like, oh, this is really good character work. And then that's always just drowned out by like, do you want to give up, Jey? Do you want to give up, Jey? Do you want to give up, Jey? And I was like, this ref needs to shut up. And then when Reigns lobbed him out the ring, that was probably my highlight of the match.
Do you know what? You said Twitter, and there was something I was supposed to do at the top of the show, which I didn't do, which was I did very much promise a shout out on Twitter to, and I hope I'm saying the name right, Chris Saletta, because he's always on Twitter bigging us up, interacting with us through the events, as is Zach Wardlow as well. So I did want to give shout outs to both of them. I was supposed to do it at the top.
Thank you to both of you.
But yeah, going back to this match, this match is So I wrote about it in my Rogers report for uselessaggression.com. Everyone should go and check it out.
It's good.
Yeah, I think it was fantastic. I think it was some brilliant storytelling work, probably the best I've seen from WWE for a long time. It's turned this feud into probably the best main roster feud of the year, which when it was first announced, I had such low hopes for. I'm pretty sure I was mocking it before whatever the last event was they fought at. But Clash of Champions, I was like, what a stupid match. But they were so good. And yeah, it wasn't it was never going to be the technical masterclass you'd have got between AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, for example. And in terms of quality of the fighting in the match, yes, it was never going to be the best Hell in a Cell match. But in terms of the storytelling inside a Hell in a Cell match, I would put it right up there along, like the end of an era, alongside Cactus Jack fighting for his job. Like, it was right up there as one of the best stories told inside a Hell in a Cell. Referee was annoying, granted. Asking someone who's passed out if they're going to quit and then being like, he's not answering. I mean, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. But watching him get thrown out of the ring was quite amusing. And yeah, Reigns' performance.
I did love on that note. So obviously it's worth noting on this one, our wild card was how many times Roman Reigns says the phrase either tribal chief or head of the table. And it didn't happen for ages. And I just love how the first time he said it was when he just got like the living crap kicked out of him. And then like when the ref asked him if he wanted to quit, he just like half passed out, just goes, oh, I'm the head of the table. It's like, I can't believe that's the first time. I was just like, that was the first time. But no, I agree. Like, I think it was, in terms of storylines, probably the best thing they've done. As much as I can think of, it's probably the best thing they've done this year. I thought there's a couple. Again, it was a very like basic match. Obviously, like, I Quit matches aren't particularly technical matches anyway.
No.
But yeah, no, it was good. I'll be honest. I preferred the second one. I preferred the second Hell in a Cell match, which we'll get to in a minute. But especially as a show opener as well, like this just ruins the rest of the show, I think, for anyone that wasn't next match.
Yeah, this one didn't need to be inside a cell, I think. You could have just had an I Quit match, but it was still all right. It was still interesting. It was still good to watch. Yeah, as you said, the funny thing I found was you had this really intense storyline driven match, which was so emotional and everything about it was, 10 out of 10. And then the cell comes up, and then it's Elias versus Jeff Hardy, and you're like, "Dear God!" Like, I think even they didn't care about following that match. Like, I think they saw that because that match was kind of poor. It didn't really need to happen. It was just they seemed to give. It was like an average Raw match, and especially because it ended in a disqualification, it was very much like an average Raw match.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was never going to be amazing because obviously like it just followed that Reigns match. But as you said, like it's almost like they just didn't try. They were just sat there like they were in the gorilla position, just watching that. Like, oh, for God's sake! But yeah, no, it was a very average TV show match. The ending I didn't really personally get, but I mean, it is what it is. It's probably the best thing to describe about that match is what it is. It happens. It was all right.
Yeah,
I guess like,
factually,
it was
it
fine.
existed.
There was nothing wrong with it. Was nothing particularly great about it either.
Yeah, it was a palate cleanser in between the big matches.
But then, yeah, we go on to
that it was the Money in the Bank match. So it's the Miz versus Otis.
This is it.
Dear God, all the drama.
We talked about the drama and the storyline of the first one. My God, like it wasn't even close comparison to this. Like, obviously, for everyone that hasn't watched it, the unthinkable has happened, and Tucky has betrayed Otis, brutally betrayed him, cost him his Money in the Bank contract. I was heartbroken. I mean, in reality, I was like, oh, cool, The Miz has one. I can actually see The Miz cashing in potentially and somewhat winning. But then, as opposed to a comparison to Otis, bless him. But they've just been drafted to different shows. I think you pointed this out. They've been drafted to shows. The breakup was inevitable anyway. But it just seems to be weird because they seem to have broken them up and taken all the momentum away from Otis, because Vince McMahon apparently was a big fan of Otis. So it just seems a bit weird that that's how they've done things. But
I mean, I
it
don't
happens,
disagree
you know.
with it though. Like, because Otis was never going to cash in, and in the ring, he's not fantastic or great. His character is funny, but it's not someone you want to put a title on. The Miz deserves championship again. He's been solid every year. He does such solid work, gets himself into good position, gets drafted to the next show. I don't know if we pointed this out on the podcast or not, or maybe it was just us chatting. But the Miz has been drafted. I had swapped shows in every draft since it was initialized, so he has to work his way back up again and all that sort of stuff. I did see some people complaining on Twitter because they were like, "Well, they've broken up Heavy Machinery now." I think that had happened anyway. They've been drafted to different shows, and then there was this whole farce this week where supposedly Tucker got swapped over to SmackDown, and then actually that didn't happen. I mean, I guess it's Survivor Series. They'll just have a Raw versus SmackDown match to kind of settle the feud. But it was annoying in the sense that, firstly, the match itself wasn't anything spectacular, but you never get that out of someone like Otis. And as much as I love The Miz, I think he's great. He isn't talented enough to get a 5-star performance out of someone like Otis. I mean, I think even AJ Styles would struggle with that, and I think he could have a match with a broom and make it incredible. But when the ending happened, when Tucker hits him with the briefcase and whatnot, I was like, dear God, this was so obvious, but I just never saw it.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. Like, it was one of those ones where I think as well, again, another reason everyone was sort of airing their grievances about Heavy Machinery breaking up is obviously we saw in the last draft, and we saw just recently in general, how much WWE has been butchering tag teams. Like, this has been like left, right, and centre tag. Like the New Day. I mean, granted, the New Day is in Kingston and Woods is still a thing, but obviously the New Day as a faction broke up. We've had so many other tag teams break up as well. We've got another one now. But it's just annoying as well because they're one of those teams, as you quite rightly said, that I don't really care about them individually. Like, they'll have this little feud, it'll probably be okay, and then beyond that, that'll be them now. That's just them done. Like, they'll probably, one of them, maybe Tucker, realistically will be cut in the next sort of line of cuts, and meanwhile as a tag team they actually had some kind of like following behind them.
The thing is, I didn't really care about them as a tag team either, to be fair. Since they've been called up to the main roster, they've not done a lot. I mean, the main thing they've been involved in is the Mandy Rose storyline, which was great, obviously. But I agree with you. I think they'll do this feud, and then, to be honest, they'll get cut down the line. Probably Tucker first. That being said, Tucker has more scope for a character, so this could easily be one where actually he turns into the one who stays and becomes useful. And Otis is the one who goes eventually. I mean, he'll just become... I can see him becoming just a comedy act chasing the 24/7 title or something. But anyway, the two normal matches were out the way. We're back in a Hell in a Cell. And I agree. This, for me, was the match of the night.
Oh, easily.
It was the best Hell in a Cell match of the night. But there was the best match of the whole card. Sasha Banks and Bayley. And like the pressure they had on this, considering... everyone talks about them in their takeover match, and they had to try and follow that up inside a Hell in a Cell when there were two other Hell in a Cell matches on that night. And the first one was that intense storyline-driven, masterpiece from Reigns and Uso. They knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, like I almost think in a way, like, I mean, obviously, like, whereas Reigns and obviously Jey Uso was very... sort of vocally storyline. I thought this was very like actiony storyline, if that makes sense. Like you sort of felt the sort of animosity between them, and I thought this was I'm really glad because obviously I often talk about the takeover match at Brooklyn, and I made an argument to you the other day that I think it's probably the best women's match WWE has ever done. And I'm not sure if how this match would level up to that one. Like,
I can't believe you would say that when Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville put on an absolute clinic.
Oh. That's a match that
weeks ago.
Unlike that match, this was a match that they were both matches actually, funny enough, that I really hoped would be good. And this one delivered massively, whereas that Mandy Rose one did not. But yeah, no, I just think Yeah, I can't really say enough praise for this match. I think considering normally Hell in a Cell matches are the big sort of blowout between a feud, like the fact it was their first one in theory, and it was what it was. I mean, by the looks of things, they've got another match beyond Survivor Series now, based on how SmackDown played out, which is cool. But it's probably at TLC or something like that. But yeah, I just thought it was amazing, this match. Like I was properly fully like, edge of my seat invested in it, partially because obviously this was the title deciding match. But yeah, I thought some of the spots looked good. I liked the fact it sounds really stupid, but I like the fact they made some weird mistakes, like that bit where Bailey tried to like tape those sticks together, and then I'm not sure what she was trying to do, but obviously it didn't work. So instead of just trying to make it work, she clearly just went, sod it, and just walked off. And I quite like
Yeah.
stuff like I quite like that as well. That sort of like I guess that just goes to show how like professional they both are and how well they know the score. But yeah, I just thought it was amazing. Like I can't really sing enough praise for it, to be honest with you. Like it's probably, I think that and the Reigns match both. It's mad. They're both definitely on the short list for a match of the year nod. But like I can't. I'm trying. I've kind of not that many matches this year. I can think in terms of main roster cards anyway. But that have really been better than those two, apart from like Styles and Bryan. Like maybe, but other than that, I can't really think of many. But like.
Yeah, I think I didn't. So when I rated this, I just gave it a normal A. I didn't give it an A plus. So and I wouldn't have said it. This is taking nothing away from the match. I thought the match was fantastic. I wouldn't have described it as a typical 5-star match, so to speak. I would say it's like a 4.5. There were a few little things in there that were weird. Like I agree with you though, when the sticks were kind of not working, the kendo sticks. I like that they just carried on with that. There was a few weird things like Bailey finding her chair in the door was so weird
We mentioned
because
that. Like, you see it get
it got
kicked miles
thrown.
away. Like,
Yeah, it got thrown fully out of the cell, and then she finds it tucked in the door where supposedly it had landed. And also, that was just weird because she could have just got another chair the whole time, but she was obviously wanted this specific one, whatever. And the whole Bailey marking Sasha with an X before trying to jump on her with the spray can just seemed weird. Like, obviously, that gave Sasha time to move out the way. So a few little things like that kind of took me out just slightly, but that takes nothing away. That's me being really nitpicky. It was a fantastic match, and it was the best match of the night. And yeah, I agree with you. It's on the short list for match of the year. I can't think off the top of my head what my other ones would be.
I can actually, having just thought of that, I can obviously think of one better. So obviously, following this match was the match set up in the pre-show between a member of Retribution and a member of the Hurt Business, where MVP got to pick one of each. Obviously, they put Bobby Lashley forward, and then for a special pay-per-view treat, it was the US Championship against Slapjack from who is Slapjack again? Who is he not at Slapjack? What's his actual name again? I always forget who they
Shane
are
Thorne.
in real life.
That's who he was.
That was it, Shane Thorne, yeah. And this was amazing. What a match! I can't sing any praises better. This should have been in Hell in a Cell, personally. But no, do you know what? Like, I think we did a draft episode not that long ago. You go back and listen to it. Obviously, it's amazing. And we both agreed to draft. We should draft Retribution a bit higher because even though it's a clearly failing thing, if they're going to try and put any legs on it, they've got to at least pretend it's a big deal. And this was their chance to do that. I mean, they could have had maybe a disqualification finish or something where the members of Retribution just used it as a ploy to get one of them in the ring by themselves and like take them out or whatever. But what happened was much worse. It was
So much
pretty
worse.
it's pretty much a squash match. I've seen people be like, it wasn't exactly it was definitely a squash match.
Oh yeah, it was over in less than 4 minutes.
And then the worst bit about it was obviously when Retribution did come out to take out Lashley single-handedly beat them all down. And then when the rest of them came down, Ali fell over and ran away. And I just, again, you're following the Bailey, much like the Elias Jeff Hardy match, you're following the Bailey Sasha Banks match again, which is no easy feat. But, like, in terms of booking, wow. Like it's surely the end of Retribution, surely.
Retribution will not. will never be able to recover to become a serious threat. And remember, this is the faction where whole rosters would be arguing backstage about getting ready to defend against Retribution. And now Bobby Lashley single-handedly beats them all up, and Ali just falls over and runs away. And I've been discussing this with a few people. I know, like, one person was kind of saying, well, you know, it's not as if any of the members are, you know, were big main eventers, so it's not as if why should we be expecting more from them? But then neither were the Nexus. This is what I've said to that. Like, you know, the Nexus were a dominant faction, and considering some of their members were Skip Sheffield, you know, David Otunga, Heath Slater before he got called.
Hey, I've heard nothing bad said about David Otunga. His commentary changed the game.
But what a weird, like, this is just, they built Retribution up to be this big, menacing faction coming in, and they're an absolute laughingstock now. They're not even a mid-card level faction. They're effectively gonna become like Lucha Underground, whatever they're called.
Lucha House Party. Don't you insult them, James? Don't you insult Lucha House Party on this podcast? Don't you dare.
But do you know what? But Lucha House Party could probably take them.
But here's the thing, going back to what you were saying as well, though, how like no one looks at them as like main eventers and stuff. So you've got like obviously Ali, like Ali. Let's think about. Remember, Ali was supposed to be Kofi. Like when Kofi Mania happened, that was supposed to be Mustafa Ali, but then he obviously had a bad injury and he got taken out of it. Mia Yim in NXT, like you could put the NXT Women's Championship on her. I don't think many people would be that upset with that. Dominic Dijakovic, I can't pronounce his name properly. He was in a War Games match. Like he was Dijakovic. He was in a War Games match. He was like a big thing on NXT for a while. Like they are people much like Nexus. They are people you could look at and be like, yeah, you could like in the future with the right sort of exposure, these could be like main eventers, or they could at least be like a mid-card championship at least. But yeah,
this is the upsetting thing though. Like if you hadn't made Retribution, Dijakovic naturally would have eventually wound up on the main roster because he was impressing on NXT, and he had his whole thing going with Keith Lee, and it was quite a nice kind of feud turned into a friendship sort of vibe. Yeah, Mia Yim. Fantastic. I understand they probably wanted to call her up because Keith Lee got called up, and they wanted to keep them together. But yeah, she was great. Yeah, Ali is all right. Shane Thorne was all right. Dia Madden was all right. But now there's no going back from this. Like they will always be tainted as, oh yeah, you were that guy in Retribution. It was crap and wore really stupid masks. You know, it's hard to take people seriously when they've done something this bad. And it just, I feel bad for them, especially for Dijakovic, because I really think he's so good, but he's a laughingstock at the minute.
I can't remember what his nickname is. Is he T-Bar? Is that him? I can't remember what it is. I forgot all their nicknames.
Dijakovic is T-Bar. Dio Madden is Mace. Shane Thorne is Slapjack. I can't remember Mia Yim's name. Retaliation or something like that.
I can't remember, yeah. And then they had that weird match afterwards where she had that like weird fit. And yeah, I don't know what's going on with that booking. It's weird as well, because obviously you think that people like Daniel Bryan and people like that are on the writing staff now. And you sort of think like Daniel Bryan was in the Nexus. Like you think like he probably did say like, guys, let's do something.
Daniel Bryan is SmackDown though. Edge is supposedly Raw.
Yeah, but like the thing is that Edge would know as well, like the importance of factions and like giving people opportunities. But it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's a frustrating one. I really like Mustafa Ali. I really rate him. Obviously, you've already pointed out about like Dominic Dijakovic and Mia Yim and stuff. And it's a lot of wasted potential. Don't get me wrong. I like the Hurt Business as well. I actually like that Bobby Lashley finally within this last year has been booked properly. He's been booked as he actually looks, which is a massive blow. I like that, I do, but yeah, this is. I mean, there's probably going to be some blowout at Survivor Series, possibly, maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I couldn't care less. That's the sort of thing, really. But we go on to the main event from there, which was Drew McIntyre surprisingly losing the title to Randy Orton in a third and final Hell in a Cell match. And I thought this was okay, this match. I think, much like the non-Hell in a Cell matches, this one suffered from the other two being really good. Because they had like that storyline angle about them. We were talking about it before we recorded. Like, all three Hell in a Cells had their own sort of vibe to them. Like, the Reigns Jey Uso one was like the really dramatic story one. The Sasha Banks Bayley one was the feud blowing up one. And then this was just like the traditional Hell in a Cell match. You know, you've got like your spot, you got your like spot on the top of the cell, you've got like the people breaking out of the cell, all the stuff against the cell. It's the classic Hell in a Cell match. I was just the result though. Don't get me wrong, Randy Orton probably should have won a title by now based on his sort of performance in this year, but I feel like they kind of left it way too late, to the point you just sort of a bit like, oh, when he actually won, I was a bit like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's a weird timing. Like, why not just put the belt on him at SummerSlam or Clash of Champions? Like, why wait till now? But I mean, I'm not against the result. I think Orton should be a world champion. I think he deserves it. The thing with this one is, as you said, it was the more traditional match. It was the worst of the three Hell in a Cell matches, but that it was still an entertaining match. Again, a few little weird things, like them. They climbed up the cell for seemingly no reason. Like, they had like a quick scuffle on top of the cell and then started climbing down again. So that whole thing was weird. Obviously, it was to set up the spot that was going to happen, but they could have tried to make the fight last a little bit longer up at the top just to kind of justify it. The spot itself was a terrible botch job. Orton hits his arm and Drew just leaps down through this table. And you could tell how bad it was because the replays didn't come instantly, because they were obviously cutting that bit out. And then all the replays happen afterwards. And in all of them, it starts with Drew already falling. So you could tell even they were like, God, that looked crap. Like, Orton just knocking his arm and Drew was already weirdly balancing out and then jumped down. I think the one weird thing really is, like, Raw doesn't have an abundance of faces. And I guess now they look like they're going to go down this whole kind of Drew McIntyre and The Fiend feuding with Randy Orton. And I guess you can play off The Fiend as a face kind of vibe, but there's not a whole list of people that can challenge Orton. So, I mean, I really think they're just going to try and keep the belt on him till Edge returns. But yeah, weird. Considering you just did the draft, you could have looked at maybe giving someone for him to feud with that was a maybe Keith Lee will get a shot.
I mean, I personally would love that. I mean, I think having the Fiend is a bit weird because, like, the Fiend's arguably the only person on Raw who's more of a heel than Randy Orton. But yeah, I think also apparently. So I was reading it earlier. Apparently, so the reason he did the spot was apparently in tribute to Shawn Michaels. Apparently, Shawn Michaels and actually Undertaker. Apparently, that was what he did the spot in tribute to. But there was just, at one point, I genuinely thought he was really hurt because obviously he like spat out blood, didn't he? And was like genuinely seemed like he was just gasping for air. I was like, is he?
I thought he oversold that. Like, no, I thought he was doing too much. I thought he was overselling.
And then obviously it ended shortly afterwards. I feel like it was a bit of a weird match, this one. Like, I think it was nothing necessarily wrong with it. Like, I think if you reverse the order maybe, and it was the opening Hell in a Cell match, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, that was all right. But obviously because it was followed the other two, maybe not. The outlook of it doesn't make any sense again. Like, obviously, like, so Raw just got like the Fiend, they got AJ Styles, all these like top tier heels, and then they put the belt on a heel as well. But the only thing that kind of annoys me about this one as well is, so if the rumors are true, and obviously he's going to hold the belt till Edge comes back and faces him at WrestleMania, and if they do go ahead and have the whole Rock WrestleMania thing with Roman Reigns, I can't really envision Orton or Reigns losing the titles between now and then. And all it means is you're going to have, again, the classic WWE thing of your main events at WrestleMania just being part-timers, which is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was Lesnar and Goldberg, going in with the belts. this year could be The Rock and Edge's challengers, which would be
But it means one
it's
of
the
them
wrong
wins the
direction
Rumble
to
as
set,
well.
especially when
Yeah.
you've got talent that like the people that could headline WrestleManias. Like you've got Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles. I would be up for Keith Lee doing it. Like it, there's some good young talent. I mean, hell, push Big E enough. Let Big E have some main event stuff. I love the man. You've got some great talent, and we're not. I just feel like they're not really making the most of necessarily all of them if they're doing it like this.
Yeah, I think that's it. And like, I mean, like, well, I know a lot of people weren't particularly, or some people anyway, weren't particularly hot on the McIntyre winning at WrestleMania thing. But I was like, at least he was someone new, and like, it made sense in like the sort of development of his character. Like, it's a long time coming for a lot of people, so that was a great sort of Rumble moment. But like, yeah, I think outside of people like, 'cause realistically, if of those two, if it isn't, it'd be Edge winning the Royal Rumble. And although that's like cool, equally you're sort of sat there like Edge is going to win the Royal Rumble. You're sort of like, really? I don't get me wrong, I love Edge, and like him coming back at the Rumble was one of the best things that happened. But I can't. If you was taking him to win it, I would have been like, no, we have like Keith Lee or someone win it. Like, the Rumble should be a way to either solidify someone who's sitting near the top or just give a massive push to someone that deserves it. And this just does neither, giving it to Edge. It craps on a lot of people. Again, that means like you'll just have all these people again, like AJ Styles, The Fiend, Daniel Bryan, Keith Lee, Drew McIntyre, even now. All these people in that sort of mid card tier will just have nothing. Like they'll just probably maybe a couple of them have like a mid card title match. They'll make up some weird feud, or like maybe even the Undertaker will come back or something. I don't know. Again, but yeah, I think the outlook of it. I mean, it's cool that Randy Orton won. I do think that is cool. Because obviously, he deserves it because he's been probably the sort of MVP of this year. I would say, like in terms of his sort of character work and his character development. But him winning it now just
Not
seems
Slapjack.
a bit weird. Like of course, I mean, obviously, Slapjack is the heel of the year, of course. But like, I mean, I was going apart from Slapjack. I mean, Slapjack could win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, I wouldn't complain about that. He deserves it. But yeah, it's just a bit. I don't know. I think I wanted him to win it at SummerSlam or Clash of Champions, but I didn't want him to win it here. So I was a bit like, oh, for God's sake, like every single time they got it wrong. The 3 times they had a match, I was like, you've got the result wrong every time. But yeah, it happened. Hell in a Cell happened. It was a really good event. I know we've been complaining about the last 2 matches. But no, it was a good event. Like I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, the first 2 Hell in a Cell matches were definitely on the short list for match of the year for me. Possibly even just match of the year, depending on how it goes. But yeah, no, like I thought overall it was a very good show. And Survivor Series obviously coming up now. The only annoying thing is we have Asuka versus Sasha Banks for like the 100th time this year. If they had NXT in there, you could have had Io Shirai in there as well, and that would have been fantastic. But alas, Asuka Sasha Banks again it is. But I'm glad she's a champion. I am. I'm a big Sasha. I actually quite like Sasha Banks. I know you don't, but I think yeah, it's good that she's finally a champion. Hopefully, she lasts 1 defense this time.
Yeah, that would probably make it a bit more legitimate for her. But yeah, there you go. So those are our thoughts about Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Feel free to get in touch with us to let us know what you think or thought, about Hell in a Cell. And also feel free to check out all our other content. Go on uselessaggression.com. You can see our blogs. You can see our fantasy section, which is going to heat up now because SummerSlam Survivor Series is next. And we will do an episode where we update people about how that's gone on, as we will now be going against each other for the first time. And also, obviously, just subscribe to this podcast. Keep telling your friends, tell your family, tell people on Twitter, like Chris Saletta likes to do. He's a good guy. Be more like Chris. And yeah,
Legend.
If you want to get in touch with us on Twitter, we're available at UselessAgPod, and individually, I am at Citadel James.
And I'm at Henry Rogers 94.
And yeah, thank you for listening, and continue listening, please, to all things Useless Aggression.